Well, good morning. Welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder. This is BRN AM for Friday, June 30th, 2023. And our top story today, what makes us happy in life? And of course, retirement too. And joining me now to discuss this and a lot more, Dr. Robert Waldinger is the Executive Director of the Harvard Study of Adult Development. He's also the co-author of The Good Life. Bob, great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us in the program this morning.
I'm glad to be here.
Well, Bob, let's talk about this study. Can you describe the study being done by you and the team?
Yes, this is called the Harvard Study of Adult Development. As far as we know, it's the longest study of adult life that's ever been done. It started in 1938, so we're in our 85th year. I'm the fourth director. And it started out with 724 original participants. 1/3 of them were Harvard College undergraduate students. 2/3 of them were boys from Boston's poorest neighborhoods and most troubled families. And both groups were recruited to study thriving, to study what helps people stay on good developmental paths as they go from adolescence to adulthood.
And I mean, obviously it's pretty, I would say that's very groundbreaking because we all go through our own individual experiences through life, but it's interesting to be able to track how all these individuals kind of went through their lives and how they developed. You were able to take away some really important information about retirement. So 85 years of the study going on, I have to think that some of these individuals have hit their retirement years. What have you learned?
Well, almost everybody has passed away. So, and only a few people, maybe fewer than 40 out of 724 are still living. They're in their late 90s and early 100s. So yes, everybody has retired. And what we learned was that good connections with other people made a huge difference, not just in your happiness, but in your health, in retirement, actually all the way through life, but particularly in retirement. That the people who replaced their workmates with new mates, people to hang out with, to do things with, they were the happiest and the healthiest in their retirement years.
And Bob, just, I think about today, but I how we're all, in some ways, part of this was from the pandemic. There was a lot of social isolation. Now look, you and I are talking through Zoom. So there's a lot of, I can't, we can only see the top halves of our bodies, right? So we're not really physically in the same room. And so therefore we're disconnected. And I wonder, did the same thing exist for people, maybe they weren't using Zoom, but when they retired, they kind of went about their lives and started doing other things, but there was disconnect as well there.
Well, many people retired from full-time jobs, went home, sat on the couch and watched TV and picked their heads up and said, where did everybody go? Where did all my workmates go? And they didn't stay in touch with friends, especially many men, because men were more likely in the workforce full-time in that World War II generation that we studied. But this applies now to women as well when they retire. So what we know is that the people who had the most trouble with retirement were the people who became more isolated when they left the workforce.
Yeah, and we'll talk about how maybe retirement has changed, but I want to ask you about longevity. That, retiring at age 65, you don't just die the next day, or you don't even die 10 years after that. People are living a lot longer in our society, and that creates other problems. It drains on societal resources, all that kind of stuff that maybe is outside the purview of the conversation. But how is longevity impacting people in this study, or how did longevity impact people in the study, although some of them are still alive, there's a balancing act between living longer, but then being interactive and maybe losing friends along the way.
Yes, that's always a factor as we live longer, that we suffer more and more loss. Many older people in their 80s and 90s will say, so many of my friends have died. The people who are most important to me are gone. And that is one of the difficult things about living long. Also, we often have more disability, and having more disability means it's harder to connect with people. So what we also found in our study was that the people who really took care of their physical health stayed healthier longer. They had more years of disability-free life. What that means is that if you can keep exercising, keep eating well, avoid drugs and alcohol, avoid obesity, that all those things really matter.
Yeah. Bob, before we go to a commercial break, let me ask you about our hobbies. Say I like to fix cars, say I like to play an instrument. Are they enough when you get to retirement? Are they enough to satisfy this human need for community, for being around other people? Is that enough to stave off some of the isolation, some of the negative effects of maybe not working any longer?
Well, it depends on what you do with those hobbies. So some people spend their time working on their hobbies all by themselves. Other people have hobbies that they do with other people. So for example, a gardening club, or, a bridge group, or golfing, you can do with other people. That it's also important to note that we are all different in how much social contact we need. Some people are introverts and they don't need a lot of people. They just need a few very good relationships in their lives. Other people are extroverts. They need more people in their lives. So one size doesn't fit all when it comes to how you live your life in retirement.
Yeah. Bob, I need to take a very quick break. When we come back, we'll talk more about longevity, isolation, and building relationships. You're going to want to stay tuned right here on BRN AM. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms? Especially for the smaller businesses. I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network.
Tax audits, tax liens, wage garnishments.
Every day we hear stories like this about good folks who are simply struggling to pay their bills. Each of them are living a frightening IRS tax nightmare, and they are afraid it will destroy their lives.
I'm a divorced single mom, and my ex-husband left me and the kids with a lot of unpaid bills, including unpaid taxes. I was really starting to show my stress on my kids because the IRS had sent me a letter demanding a huge payment from me. I couldn't afford it. So then the IRS was threatening to garnish my wages. I'm already living paycheck to paycheck. That would have put me over the edge financially.
It truly seemed hopeless, but then a friend at work told her to call the tax relief line.
The people at the tax relief line, they told me about something called innocent spouse relief. They worked it out so that all of the taxes from my ex are not my problem. I don't know how that works, and I don't care. All I care about is that I don't owe the IRS a dime, and they are not going to take my paycheck.
Even if it seems hopeless, you should call the number on your screen right now. There is absolutely no cost for the call or the consultation. You are under no obligation. If you are worried that the IRS could garnish your wages, seize your assets, even take your home, call us right now. The Tax Relief Line is here to help you. Now you have a knowledgeable, professional team of tax experts that are ready to negotiate with the IRS and fight for you to save you money. The Tax Relief Line's professionals have successfully negotiated thousands of cases, reducing and sometimes even eliminating the tax debt for their clients. It's very easy to get started. Simply call the number on your screen right now. You don't have to live in fear anymore. The call and the consultation are free.
Well, Bob, thanks so much for staying with us. We really appreciate you hanging around for segment number 2.
Sure.
So this is a very comprehensive study, and I want to ask you about some lessons for retirees, people who are thinking about retirement. Maybe they're 5-10 years away from retirement, and they need to be thinking about what they're going to do. But how important is investing in relationships? You made a comment before we went to commercial break that some people don't need 100 friends. They may need 3, 4, 5. Others may. So is it important to invest in relationships before and during retirement?
Yes, but the number of relationships, as we said, depends on who you are and whether you're more on the introverted side or more on the extroverted side. But it really is important to think about using your expertise if you can, even in retirement. You don't have to go back to work, but it may mean that you use your talents, that you use your abilities, maybe in new ways. One of the things that many people find is that if they have a purpose, if they have a reason to get up in the morning, they feel better in retirement. Now, that might be taking care of grandchildren. That might be, volunteering at your local food pantry, or it might be mentoring younger colleagues who are in the same area of work that you just retired from. So there are a lot of ways to use your abilities and your energy, but I think that the people who are the happiest are the people who find ways to still feel useful, to still feel like they matter in the world.
Yeah, and you bring up the mentorship. I mean, a lot of companies, organizations, when people retire, they lose. It's called the brain drain. They lose that expertise. I'm sure that there are employers out there, maybe there's not your existing employer, but maybe, like you said, mentorship, being able to pass along and help guide. As you get more experience, you can create more leadership and provide more leadership to different teams.
Yeah. The other thing that's useful to remember is that you're not going to hit a home run every time when you try something new in retirement. So many people will try something new, or they might volunteer at an organization and it won't go that well. Like they'll feel like, oh, they don't really need me. They don't really even know if I show up. And that happens. And so what it's worth remembering is that it's more like getting up to bat at baseball. You're not going to hit the ball every time, but that's okay, because sometimes you're going to really connect. And that what you should do is be prepared when you try some new things in retirement. Be prepared that not everything is going to work out, either because you're not going to like it, or it's not the right setting for you, or some other factor. But that if you keep trying, you're going to find things that really use your energies, your abilities, and make you feel good.
Yeah, you bring up an interesting point, and what you're describing to me is like, when you're young and you're experiencing life, You're going to have, when you're a kid, you stick your finger in the light socket. You learn not to stick your finger in the light socket. You get electrocuted, right? And so I wonder along the way, as we become more experienced, do we take less chances? Do we become less flexible? And therefore, to be successful in retirement, you actually have to think back to a time when you were younger, trying to and embrace new experiences, embrace new parts of life. Is that really the key to success in retirement?
Well, it's a good point that we get more scared of taking risks as we get older, understandably, because we don't have the same resilience. We don't have the same energy that we did when we were younger. So it is important to try to cultivate a mindset of taking some risks, getting out of our comfort zone. That's hard to do as we get older, but it really has great payoffs.
Yeah, it certainly does. Last question, Bob. Just some advice for building some of those connections. We talked all throughout our discussion about the importance of connecting with people. How do you build those? What do you have to do to be open to those connections and be willing to embrace people? Again, it's not based on the numbers, but what are some of the successful factors you need to apply in order to do that?
Well, one is to strike up conversations, and that can be hard, but take the risk of talking to people you don't know. And we know from research that one of the easiest ways to make new friends and new connections is to put yourself in a situation where you're with the same people repeatedly and you're doing something that you care about. So let's say it's a bowling league, or let's say it's a golf club. You put yourself in a situation where you share something with the other people you're with. You all share an interest. And that gives you a nice place to start having conversations with people you don't know. And some of those conversations will deepen, and some of those conversations will eventually lead you to new friendships.
I lied, Bob. It's not the last question. Let's talk about next year's study. What do we look forward to for next year? Obviously, are you going to increase the pool of people? Do you continue to look at new generations and build that up for future studies?
Well, we're studying the second generation, the children of all of our original men. And the children are all baby boomers. They're all in their 60s, 70s. And we're studying them now. We're asking them about their lives. And particularly, we're asking them about what their experience was like during the COVID pandemic. And we're also asking them more about how they use social media and how that influences their lives.
Yeah, that's going to be really interesting. Look, I can't wait for that study to be released. Bob, we're going to have to leave it there. Great to talk to you. Thanks so much for joining us, and we look forward to having you back on the program again very soon.
Thanks for having me.
And that wraps up this episode of BRN AM. Have a topic of interest, someone you think we should talk to, drop us a line. And don't forget, for all the latest curated news and lifestyle, wellness, finance, tech, so much more, and all in one place, check out today's edition of our daily newsletter, The Morning Pulse. Want to search our archives, check out our latest content? Visit our website, and of course, all of our streaming partners. We're back again tomorrow for another edition of BRN Weekly. We'll be joined by Jane King from the NASDAQ, and then we'll be taking a look back at some of our best segments for the week. Until then, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes. Now is your opportunity to co-create content around any topic on the First Lifestyle and Wellness Network. Reach a global audience through our platform and co-own exclusive branded content. All of our programs are available on demand and also as audio-only podcasts, so you can take us on the go. Broadcast Retirement Network, available anytime, anywhere, and on any device.